Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari Jaya Madhava Kunjavi Hari Jaya Gopi Janavalava Yidivado Hari Jaya Jai Gopi Janavalava Yidivado Hari Jashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Anachari Yamuna Tira Anachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Jaya Vishwabhad Brahmans Parivrajikacharya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Yes, we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20, entitled Conversation Between Maitreya and Vidura. Today looking at verse 37, which is on the board. So kindly repeat this after me. Line by line. Iti sayantanim sandhyam asura pramadasyatim pralobhayantim jagrahur matva mudhadiyastriyam. Iti. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Asuras, clouded in their understanding, took the evening twilight to be a beautiful woman showing herself in her alluring form, and they seized her. Purport. The Asuras are described here as Mudha Diyaha, meaning that they are captivated by ignorance, just like the ass. The demons were captivated by the false, glaring beauty of this material form, and thus they embraced her. We can repeat this translation. The Asuras, clouded in their understanding, took the evening twilight to be a beautiful woman, showing herself in her alluring form, and they seized her. Mukam karoti vachalam bhangam lanayate grimya krividam bandai Shri Guru Nina Tarnam Paramahandamarvam. So Mudha Dhiya. Mudha, we know that word very well. It's one of the prominent words in our vocabulary. It means a person who is foolish, like an ass, like a beast of burden. The explanation we have from Srila Prabhupada is that an ass is a grass-eating animal. So grass is everywhere. So an ass could live very nicely, just wandering here and there, taking food wherever it grows. But because the ass is foolish, he comes under the power of a person who puts him to work. And he works very hard. You can see in India, where they still utilize these animals. And here I see in the West, the asses are quite large compared to those in India. Those in India are small, have spindly legs, and yet they still get piled up on the back with big sacks. Tremendous load compared to their body size. And they work like that. And then at the end, what do they get? Their master feeds them grass. He's bringing to them big blades of grass that he throws down before them, that he eats. He could eat anywhere, but he's thinking, I have to do this work in order to eat. So this is because the intelligence is clouded. So the intelligence, Diya, this is the faculty of the subtle body by which our senses are directed in their activities. The subtle body has its different departments or faculties. So the mind, the manas, this is providing to the senses the things that the senses either likes or dislikes. The mind is sankalpa, vikalpa, of a dualistic nature. So it perceives certain things and labels them as desirable. And the senses want those things. So, but then there is need of how the senses will go about getting those things. There is need of this direction that the mind does not do. Rather, the intelligence is doing that. So how to get desirable objects, and conversely how to avoid the things that we don't want. This is the business of the material intelligence, Diya. So when the intelligence is clouded, Mudha Diya, then we are trying to accept, as we see here, the demons embracing the twilight, thinking that it is a beautiful, desirable woman. Actually, it's made very clear, simply an illusory form. So this is Mudha Diya. The intelligence is clouded, and thus it directs the senses to attain objects which actually bring no ultimate satisfaction. And this is the condition of everyone in this material world. Another example that Prabhupada gave, very appropriate here, concerning also an animal, deer. I think he uses the example of the deer. So a deer, some animal like that, in the desert sees a mirage. In the horizon, something appears that looks like a body of water. And so the deer rushes in that direction because being in the desert, she is very thirsty. So this is the intelligence. You see, something is appearing in the distance that looks like water, and the intelligence is saying, there it is. This is what you need to satisfy your thirst. Go, go, go. And so urged in that way, she's running. But the nature of mirage is that the more you run toward it, the more it is at the same rate moving ahead. You see. So one never gets closer. In the meantime, the much needed energy of the body is being expended in this pursuit of something that can never be attained, and one finally dies. So this example is given as an analogy of everyone's struggle in this material world. And this is due to being falsely directed by the intelligence. In Australia, Srila Prabhupada actually referred to misdirected intelligence to lighten a kind of very heavy situation that occurred due to one of his aspiring disciples making a very foolish mistake in the presence of some important persons. That this was in Melbourne. Prabhupada was receiving some guests, important guests, and also leading devotees were there. And so one boy, he was just a bhakta, he was sent in to fill Srila Prabhupada's drinking cup. And this cup was a glass goblet. So the goblet was on Prabhupada's desk, but it was upside down, probably to prevent dust from falling into the glass. So it was upside down, and apparently this young man had no experience with this type of drinking glass, which sits on a kind of, there's a base and then there's a stem, and then you have the glass bowl which you actually drink from on the end of the stem. So this is upside down. So he came with the bowl of water and he looked at it and he speculated, intelligence not working properly. So he speculated this is some kind of very exotic type of drinking glass which has a long neck and then a wide lip. So he just poured the water on the base of the goblet, the upturned goblet. And of course the water just splashed everywhere over the desk. And this was in front of everyone who was there. And a great silence came over the assembly. Everyone was looking at Prabhupada. What is he going to do now? And Prabhupada saw this and he saw the guests, and then he just smiled. And to everyone he said, misdirected intelligence. And that, removed all the heaviness from the atmosphere. Everyone kind of chuckled. Of course, the boy was very embarrassed, but it's also part of the learning process. Sometimes we have to be embarrassed. So, misdirected intelligence. This means we see oppositely than the way things really are. So there's so many verses and purports and explanations to this point that's made here. So later in the Bhagavatam, where Maharaj Prithu is instructing the citizens, he uses a term that is, he's telling them that what state of intelligence they should have. And the term that he uses is opposite to this mudhadiya. He uses the term, a very nice term, adhoksajadiya. So adhoksaja is of course name of Krishna. And actually the name adhoksaja has a very nice explanation when it's analyzed in terms of Sanskrit combinations of root words. So it has three parts: adho, aksha, and ja. So adho means to push down, aksha, the eyes, just like the word pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means sense perception. So the eyes, they stand for all the senses. Just like in conversation, someone is telling you something about some situation not there. Say upstairs there's some problem and you are the one who is supposed to deal with that. So he's telling you upstairs, one of the fire extinguishers fell off the wall and turned on, and now there's foam all over the floor or something, and you have to go up there. So anyway, so this is being told to you, and you hear it, and then you say, I see. Now you're down on this floor, you're not up there. You don't see it directly, but the seeing stands for understanding. And the seeing, the vision of the eyes, stands for the perception of all the senses. So pratyaksha, this word is like that. Aksha means eyes. So to see something, perceive something, understand something. The eyes are the symbol. So adho, pushing down, aksha, the eyes, and then ja means to be born from. So all that is born from the eyes, that Krishna pushes down. This is the meaning of the name Adhoksaja. In other words, Krishna is transcendental. His name, form, qualities, activities cannot be compared to anything material, anything that we perceive through the eyes, or anything that's born, the understanding which is born through the senses. There's no comparison. So this is Lord Adhoksaja. So Adhoksaja Diya means that the intelligence is working under the direction of Lord Adhoksaja, just as these demons oppositely, their intelligence is pushing them to embrace an illusory form. So Maharaj Prithu is advising his citizenry, that their intelligence should direct them to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. And in a purport to these instructions, Srila Prabhupada explains that this concept of adhoksaja is summarized in the Bhagavad Gita in the verse Yat Karoshi Yarashnashi Yat Juhoshi Dirashya. Because again, the diya, the intelligence, directs the senses. So this verse is speaking about the different engagements of the senses. Yat Karoshi. Karoshi means what we do. So whatever one is doing, Krishna says, Tat Karusha Madarpanam. That should be done as an offering to me. Yat Karoshi Yat Ashnashi. To eat. Ashnashi means to eat. Yat Juhoshi. What is that? Offering. Make offering. And Dadami means to give away. Dadashi. Yat Kuroshi, Yat Ashnashi, Yat Juhoshi, Dadashi. Yes. Dadashi means to give away. Yat Tapashashi. So everyone is performing austerities in whatever they do. Even the fruitive workers, they have to get up very early in the morning to go to their job. Everyone is having to endure so many unpleasantries for the sake of achieving what they hope to be a higher goal. So Krishna is saying all these things, which we are, in other words, we are doing them anyway. Items, we don't find anything that is so exotic that, I'll have to learn how to do that. That's something I have no familiar. Everyone knows how to do things. Everyone is familiar with eating. Everyone is familiar with making some formal offering to another. Everyone knows about giving away. Everyone knows about performing some sort of austerity. Everyone is doing those things. But Krishna says, do it for me. And then in the next verse he goes on to say, in this way one will be rid of the auspicious and inauspicious effects of our activities. Shubha, Ashubha. I was speaking in the Gita class the other night about the Dvandva Moha, this delusion of duality. We were reading that verse, which is the misfortune of every living entity born into this material world, that we are subject to the delusion of duality. We are pushed and pulled on two sides. Pulled towards seemingly desirable sense objects, at the same time being pulled away from the inauspicious aspects of those same sense objects, those same so-called desirable things. As we are pulled towards them, we start to perceive that there are so many undesirable things associated with them. So then we're so pushed and pulled, and this is actually the way people become crazy in this world. You see, people literally become mad because of this. They don't know which way to turn. So this is the means by which the living entity is bound up. Bound up by his desires, pulling him in two directions simultaneously. So Krishna says one is freed from this. Why is that? The answer, it's very logical, very simple. Because whatever one is doing for Krishna, not for one's own self. This is the principal lesson from Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, although he's a powerful warrior, certainly competent to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, he did not want to do that because he perceived so many inauspicious results coming out. So at the end of the Gita, he is convinced to do that fighting for Krishna, not for himself. And then this Shubha Ashubha was no longer there to trouble him. So Krishna says, he declares, this is the state of liberation. When one is doing one's activities not for oneself, not on one's own account, but on account of the order of the Supreme Lord. So in this way one becomes free from entanglement in material nature, and Krishna declares, will come back to me. So Srila Prabhupada told a nice story of a poor village man who had a desire to do meaningful service in his life. He wanted to serve someone who was very worthy of his service. So first of all, he began to serve the head man of the village, the mayor, we would call him, of the village, thinking simply he's the most important person. But while doing service to him, he noticed that a person rode up on a horse, dressed in a very fine uniform, and the mayor was very respectful to him and giving him a sack of money that he was taking away. So he inquired from the mayor, who was that person you were receiving with such honor? Oh, he's the tax collector. Oh, so he's more important than you? Yes, I have to collect taxes here and I give it to him. Oh, then may I go serve him? Yes, all right. That is your desire? Yes, you can go serve him. So he ran after the tax collector and proposed to the tax collector that, I want to serve you. Why do you want to serve me? Because you're the greatest person. And the tax collector said, no, I'm not the greatest person. Oh, you mean you're serving someone else? Yes, I'm serving the viceroy. Oh, so then he went to take up service with the viceroy. But then he came to know that the viceroy is serving the king. He's also not supreme. So then he went to serve the king. And then while serving the king, he saw one day one great sage came. And the king was bowing down before the great sage and offering full respect, worship to him. And so he realized there's someone even greater than the king. So he went before the sage and offered himself to become his servant. And the sage asked him, why do you want to serve me? Because I have seen, I first started serving the mayor and then the tax collector and viceroy and then king. You are the greatest. No, I am not the greatest. Then who is greater than you? And the sage said, Lord Narayan. Where can I find Lord Narayan? And so the sage directed him to go to a temple. One nice temple was nearby. So he went there, but by the time he got there, the temple was closed for the night. So he took rest outside the gate of the temple. His idea was, when the temple opens, I will go in and begin my service to Lord Narayan. And so early the next morning, the Brahmins were coming to open the temple. And they saw this poor fellow, this simple villager, laying in front of the gate, and he was covered with one of the deity's blankets. So then the Brahmins were talking among themselves. He's a thief. He must have broken in last night and rifled through the deity's paraphernalia and got this blanket. So some of the Brahmins were standing around him to arrest him. He wouldn't get away. Another was going with the key and opening. He was testing the lock of the gate. It's locked. And then he went in, and temple, everything locked all the way in. And so he came out and he said, everything is in order. I think that the deity himself has placed this blanket upon this person. There's no evidence that there was any break-in at all. Everything's in good order. So in this way, the Brahmins could understand that this person is very sincere, and the deity is acknowledging that he is my servant. So there is a verse, a nice verse by Jamunacharya. It's quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And this is a verse about sanat, this term is used, that we should have a master, not, as you know, just like Jagannath, master, Lord of the universe. So our aspiration should be to be sanat, to have Krishna as our master. And one who has achieved this position, then prashanta, he is completely satisfied. And Prabhupada used to cite this verse on his morning walk in Juhu in Mumbai, where one could see many dogs. Anywhere you go in India, practically, you will see dogs on the street. So the dogs without master who just live in the street, they're not happy. They're skinny, they're feeling very inferior, you see. And those who have a master, they're walking very proudly. They go out on the street with their master on the leash, and they're walking very proudly, they're looking very healthy, you see. And also they're barking very loudly if there's anyone who is approaching, who is unauthorized, showing that I am the protector of my master. You have to go through me if you're going to disturb him. You see. Whereas the street dogs, they tend to slink away. So they have no place, so nobody cares about them. So our aspiration is to become sanat, to become servants of the Supreme Lord, and not, Prabhupada would say, the opposite, anat, having no Lord. So this is very instructive, because everyone is looking for a master. Even these demons here, they want to surrender to this illusory woman manifest from dawn, which Lord Brahma created from a polluted body that he gave off. We've seen in the verses previous how they're addressing this woman, referring to her feet as lotus feet and all of that. So this is an essential need in the living entity, to be surrendered to somebody. Everyone is looking. No one wants to just be, you see, without any shelter. So then the question is, like this simple man in the story Prabhupada told, whether we are intelligent enough to find the actual Lord, the actual one who is worthy to be surrendered to. You see. So this is now in this day and age made actually very simple. The Prabhu, the Master, has appeared in this age as the holy name, and he is spreading everywhere through this world. And one needs only take up the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to become established as the servant of the Lord and to feel that satisfaction, prashanta, that happiness that comes when one is fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. So it just comes to mind, there's a nice story, Srila Prabhupada, from Prabhupada's preaching in India in 1970-71. This is when he was starting the ISKCON mission in India after being in the West for some years. So he was doing a program at a place called Wardha in Maharashtra. And at this place, one of Mohandas Gandhi's, probably his foremost disciple, Vinoda Bhave, who has passed on, but at that time he was still alive. He was a very old man. So he had his ashram there. It was an ashram dedicated to Gandhi's principles. And this Vinoda Bhave was having a Gita Sammelan, inviting different sadhus to come and speak on Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada came with his disciples, and there were other sadhus, all Mayavadis of course. And Vinoda Bhave himself, he had some women who were in his ashram to chant the Gita shlokas from memory. They did that, all 700 verses. And then it was the turn of the different sadhus to make their presentation. So Srila Prabhupada, his presentation was Harinam Sankirtan. He had his disciples, all from the West, chant Hare Krishna. And the effect was uproarious. Everyone there, all the people gathered, they had just kind of been sitting, hearing the Gita verses, nice, but not very involved. But when the kirtan came, everyone was jumping up and chanting and dancing, immediately feeling the bliss of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada spoke a few words after that, just pointing out that this is Krishna consciousness, this experience of transcendental satisfaction. You have all had this taste, so you should continue on with this chanting. And this is the actual message of the Bhagavad Gita. You see, this is what Krishna wants of us. And everyone was so happy. They could understand it by directly tasting the nectar of the holy name. That yes, this is the real thing. This is Krishna consciousness. This is the real culmination of the message of Bhagavad Gita. So the next person to speak was one Mayavadi Swami, and he was sort of, put out. How do I follow that act? So he thought also to have a kirtan, but couldn't be Hare Krishna kirtan because Prabhupada had already done that. So he did some other. So he was coming to the microphone and clapping like this and chanting something about Satchitananda Vasudevam Satchitananda Govinda Om Tat Sat. And everyone in the audience was, they just couldn't get into it. You see, not authorized. The potency was not there. So this is an important point, that the Lord is inviting us to become his servants, to take shelter at his lotus feet by this Nam Sankirtan mission. As I said, a very simple, direct process. What could be more simple than that? But one should not bring in this manoratina, this speculation. This is also there in that verse from Jamunacharya, that when one becomes sanat, when one actually becomes established at the lotus feet of the Lord, then this one important symptom of prashanta, becoming peaceful and satisfied, is that the mind stops its mental speculation. So if one tries to bring mental speculation into this process, then one may be able, perhaps there are some foolish people who will not be real. It will not be real. The bliss, the satisfaction of Krishna consciousness will be lacking. So this is the point. As we see with these demons, they are following some false lord. And what is the result of that for them? Is it satisfaction? Is it bliss? No. Simply agitation, increased agitation of the mind and the senses. And this is misery. This state of yearning for something that is not going to deliver the happiness that is hoped for, that is misery. And this is the misfortune of everyone in this world. And it is the greatest misfortune if this Maya takes the form of spiritual life. So this is why Prabhupada used this term, Mayavadi. It means they are appearing to be transcendentalists, spiritualists, but they're sticking. Prabhupada said in one conversation, Mayavadi means one who sticks to Maya. They're sticking to Maya nonetheless. And that's because the mind continues its concoction even in the course of one's so-called spiritual activities. Everything remains on the mental plane, and that is, mental plane is material plane. So this Diya means intelligence. Diya stands above the mind. So properly directed intelligence, actually, as we see from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song, the spiritual master is to be the intelligence of the disciple. You see? This is spiritual intelligence, when the instructions of the spiritual master, Guru, and the injunctions of Shastra, and the teachings of the sadhus in the line of disciplic succession, they are enshrined within the intelligence. The intelligence only functions according to Guru, Shastra, Sadhu. So then this intelligence then brings the mind under control, the senses under control. And so by this purified intelligence, then one can become adhoksaja diya. This is the meaning of I explained this. Adhoksaja means he cannot be grasped by the senses or by the material mind. But if the intelligence becomes purified by surrendering to Guru, Shastra, Sadhu, then the Lord, just like he acknowledged that poor man who took rest out in front of the temple, he acknowledged that poor man could not attain him, but Krishna acknowledged, yes, his desire to be my servant is sincere. So I will take care of him, I will accept him. So this is the process. So the laboratory then, the place of work, where we have to work in order to become acceptable servants of the Lord, is the intelligence. And in this way, the intelligence will bring the mind and the senses into train, so that they will not act whimsically, speculating and going here and there in any and all direction. but will work simply to render favorable devotional service to the Lord. So this is ad hoc sajadya, and opposite to that is cloudy intelligence, mudhadya, in which one doesn't know what one is doing, literally, acting under the influence of darkness. All right then, I'll stop here. Any question? Yes?
Should we expect something from ourselves? Should we expect some evidence or search for some evidence in our service?
Shall we expect some
Evidence
evidence? Evidence of?
in our service.
In your service.
Showing that Krishna accepts our service.
Ah. So your question is, shall we expect that evidence
Search for some evidence.
that Krishna is accepting our service? Yes. Yes. But that evidence is broadly available to the devotees who are serving according to the line of Guru Parampara. And what is that evidence? That evidence of satisfaction. And what is satisfaction? That the senses and the mind become peaceful and become attached more and more to the Lord. That's the evidence. So if that's not happening, if the mind is becoming agitated and the senses restless, then we have to study our service to see where the fault is. We have to turn to our superiors and ask them, how can I be doing my service better? Because something's amiss. Yes? Yes?
Now just explain that Bhagwan's intelligence, and should search out the master to serve. But it's also said that it's by good fortune that one meets the master. So is it a combination of both, or just only good fortune?
Well, like I was saying the other night, when Prabhupada would speak of good and bad fortune, he would always trace it back to the choice of the living entity. That we create our good or bad fortune. So, this is again from Srila Prabhupada's explanations, we cannot arrive at an understanding of determinism. I was talking about that. That there is something written in the sky that says you are condemned to be a karmi throughout all eternity. There's nothing you can do to change. And Prabhupada never accepted that. In Arlington, Texas, 1972, there's a conversation, Srila Prabhupada speaking to some Indian gentleman. And one of these gentlemen is proposing to Srila Prabhupada that it is due to samskara, meaning impressions from the past life, that someone is becoming your disciple. He's referring to the Western disciples who are there. They were able to become your disciple because of samskaras. And Prabhupada, you should see the conversation. Prabhupada immediately cuts into this. What are their samskaras? They are simply eating meat. All the sinful activities were there in there. What do you mean? And then Prabhupada went on to say, samskara may be this or that, but if one has the opportunity of good association, one should take it. You see? So now, Prabhupada said, now this is being made available to everyone. Anyone can take it. They can take it. You can take it. Then he was getting right on them, You can take it, but you don't want. You don't want. Therefore you're talking samskara, this, that. So, Krishna is independent, so he makes himself available. He makes the Opportunity to take up devotional service available according to His sweet will, yes. But when it's available, then it's available. That's the point. So now it's available. So we should take it. We should be the architects of our good fortune by taking to Krishna consciousness. And if someone, even though it's available, is not taking and then, speculating, well, it's not my time, it's this, that, this, the other thing. This Prabhupada did not accept. That's all. All right, then I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much. The Prabhupada ki jai.